Hey guys, today I want to share with you some tips and tricks for managing a large crowd of kids. How to bring the energy level of your audience up really high where they're excited and engaged, and then be able to bring that energy down really low where they're silent and you have their rapt attention. I want to help you be able to do that using some strategies that I've applied over the past 15 years as a children's entertainer and teacher. I've been working with kids for a long time at birthday parties, doing magic shows when there's only 15, 20 kids. And also I've taught assembly programs at elementary schools where there's 400 or 500 kids, where you bring the energy level way up and they're screaming and yelling, and then I need to be able to bring it back down like that to be able to impart some wisdom to them. So today I want to share with you some of these tips so that you can do the same in the classroom. First things first, you need to know your audience, okay? An audience full of kids is a lot different than an adult audience. It's a lot different than a family audience. You need to know that your audience, these kids, are made to move, okay? They're going to be fidgety. They're going to move around. They're going to be fidgeting with maybe a toy or a candy wrapper. It may be even their own hand. But kids are made to move. They're going to be fidgety. As long as they're not distracting the kids around them or disrupting you, allow some grace for that movement. Okay, so kids are made to move. Kids think like scientists. That means that they're naturally curious and they want to know about the world around them. They're still asking a lot of questions like, why does this work the way it does? And they're still learning what it means to be an audience member. And you know, they want to know what's expected of them. And if you give them that up front, you answer that question before they even ask it, then you're going to eliminate a lot of problems and troubles later on in your presentation. So tell them up front what's expected out of them. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to comply with what you want. So kids are made to move. They think like scientists. They want to know who you are, why you're there, what you're going to share. So they're going to lean in. And then you need to know that they're motivated by fun. That means if you're teaching them something, if you can turn it into a game, then you've got them instantly. They learn best when they're having fun. When it comes to kids, learning should sound like laughter and look like wonder. And you know, like I said, if you can turn it into a game, you've got them instantly. So you know your audience. Before you ever stand up in front of them, before they ever enter the room and sit down, you need to know who they are. But also, you need to know what information you're trying to present to them. You need to be prepared. If you're not prepared, then you're going to lose them really quick. There's no better way to lose a kid than to be fumbling through papers looking for the next point that you're supposed to be sharing with them, or to be looking for your supplies. The moment that you become disengaged from them, they're going to disengage from you, and they're going to begin chatting with their neighbor, and it's going to become even more difficult to get them back engaged. So be prepared. You've probably heard the phrase, idle hands make for the devil's playground. So if you haven't planned your transitions, say from worship to the storyteller, that transition isn't ready to happen really quick, and there's downtime, that there's idle time between in those transitions, then the kids are going to become disengaged, and every time a new person steps up on stage, they have to re-engage the audience. But if you have a handoff where, you know, the host invites the person to the stage, and then, you know, then this person walks off, the audience, the kids, remain engaged the entire time. So be prepared. Plan ahead. Plan those transitions. Know your audience and be prepared. All right? And those things are going to head off ever losing your audience. So what happens when you do lose your audience and you need to gain their attention and maintain their attention. How do you do that? Well, the way you don't do that is by yelling at the kids. You never want to yell at kids in a negative way. You never want to say, shut up, be quiet, sit down. Shut up's a bad word, by the way. Don't say that. Yeah, you never want to yell at kids like that, especially when you're in front of them, a large crowd. The way that you do it, you're gonna apply one of these 5 strategies. And let me give those to you now. Strategy number 1, start without them. Okay? Let me explain what I mean by that. I've already told you your audience is curious. Play to their curiosity. If you do something fun, they will lean in. So go up on stage and begin fidgeting with your props. Start laying things out. Do something curious, and they're going to lean in, and you've gained their attention. Let me give you an example of how I do that and how I've done that in the past. I've walked up in front of an audience of kids, and I pull a balloon out of my pocket. Stretch it, begin to inflate the balloon. It doesn't take long for the kids to notice me and to be turned in and asking, because they're curious, what's he going to do with that balloon? Am I going to get a balloon? What's going on? And all this is going on in their head, but I have their attention. So I don't have to yell and say, hey, pay attention. Hey, look up here. We're gonna do something. I just have to start without them. So I start without them by inflating the balloon, and then I have their attention, and I can go into talking about whatever we're talking about. So that's the first strategy. Start without them. Second one is wait for them to join you. Now, this one is a little more serious, a little more rigid, but it works for the most part. So wait for them to join you. Stand up in front of the kids and hold up your hand like you want their attention. Sometimes, this is the universal sign for be quiet. Putting your finger in front of your mouth. Hush, be quiet. But you don't have to say anything. Just stand there and do this. Looking at the kids, making eye contact with a few of the kids, and it's amazing. You don't have to say anything. Wait for them. Just do this. They know what it means, and the kids will begin to hush themselves. You'll hear the few that you make eye contact with, and give them that stern look. You'll hear them begin to hush the kids around them, and a few seconds later, you've got them all quiet and looking at you, and you can start your presentation or do what you need to do. So start without them or wait for them to join you. There's no call for yelling over them or yelling at them. So that brings us to the third one. Here we go. Third one, incentivize the kids. Incentivize them. So what I mean by this is give them something to look forward to. Set your expectations up front, and then give them something to look forward to afterwards. One way I do this in my show is I say, when I first walk in, I'll say, in the magic show today, or in the Bible story today, or in large group today, however you put it, whatever, I'm going to need some helpers from the audience. And I'll be choosing those kids that are sitting on their bottom, paying attention with big smiles on their faces. So I've said this, that, what I've done is I've set my expectations. I've told them, what I'm expecting from them, and if they comply with these expectations, they may get to help me with my illustration later. So I've incentivized them. Sorry, I forgot the word. You incentivize them with getting to help, come up on stage. and help out in some way. Here's some other phrases you may say. And that is, if you give me 5 minutes of your time, I'll blank, I will dump this bucket of water on my head. Of course, it has to be relevant to the story or whatever you're doing. But if you give me 5 minutes of your time, we're going to follow up with a game. Today, I'm going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. But if you tell them what's expected out of them, you tell them what to expect, you set a time limit, we're only going to have 5 minutes, and then you give them an incentive to look forward to, then by doing that, you're allowing them to be a part of what's going on, and you're drawing them in to be a part of it, versus doing it to them, and them being disengaged. They're going to be more engaged if they know what's expected. So tell them up front what you expect out of them and what they can expect from you. Number 4, praise the behavior you want to see repeated. This is a big one, guys. It not only is very positive and uplifting for the kids in your audience, but it's also a great tool for keeping the audience in check throughout your teaching or game or whatever you're doing. If a kid becomes really excited, really curious, and is up on his knees trying to see what you're doing on stage, which that happens when kids are engaged. That's great for them to get up, but it's beginning to become a problem because the kids around him can't see because he's up on his knees. The other kids can't, so they're going to get up on their knees and begin, and before you know it, they're all standing up, and you don't want that. You want them seated on their bottoms. So what you do is you look at somebody doing what you want, and you say, I like the way you're sitting with your legs crossed in front of you so the person behind you can see. You praise the person that's doing the behavior you want to see repeated. And by looking at little Sally and saying, Sally, thank you for sitting down on your bottom, the other kids are going to get the clue, and they're going to know what's expected out of them, and they're going to engage. It sounds so much better than saying, Jimmy, sit down. You see what I mean? Praise the behavior you want to see repeated. Use callbacks. That's number 5. When I know teachers have used this for years. They've used their own callbacks in the classroom, and they'll establish at the beginning of the year by saying, when I say this, when I do this, I want you to respond this way. You see, they're giving them the expectations. They're telling them what they expect out of them. But let me give you an example, okay? Like clapping a rhythm. I had a teacher once that would clap a part of a rhythm, and we had to respond with the end of it. So she would go, and we had to respond. And we knew that because she had trained us at the beginning of the school year, when she claps and we respond, it means that we're to be quiet, turn our listening ears on, and focus on her. So that's a callback. And a lot of times those have to be established up front, but not always. You can establish it in the moment. For example, you can say, if you hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, touch your nose. And subtly, you're telling them what you expect out of them. I want you to be able to hear me. So you're telling them what's expected, and you're giving them an opportunity to respond. You're also making it fun in a way. You're not saying, hey, listen up, which is negative. You're making it fun. You're making it interactive. You're allowing them to move by touching and clapping. You're getting them engaged. So you know your audience, and you're engaging them in that way. So another callbacks. Let's see. When I worked in Yoke Youth Ministries, the middle school ministry, we'd go into middle schools after school, and we established a callback at the beginning of the school year called upfront time. The kids knew when we said up front, they responded time, and they knew that they gave us their full attention. So, you know, if we had a huge crowd one night and it was time to start the Bible story and we needed them to come together, we'd just say up front time, and we could give them further instructions because we're not yelling over all the kids. Hey, everybody come over here, sit down, we're going to start the Bible story. All we had to do is up front time, and we could give further instructions. So that's another callback, another example of what I mean by that. So 5 strategies you can begin using now to better control an audience full of kids. That is, start without them, wait for them to join you, incentivize them, praise the behavior you want to see repeated, and use callbacks. So I hope these strategies help you become a better large group leader and help you become a better teacher when it comes to engaging a crowd of kids. But these are a few things that I've used, and I hope you can use them too.